Today we're going to take a tour of some of the grave sites of Civil War veterans buried in the Oddfellows Cemetery in Georgetown, Texas. Hi, I'm Johnny Anderson, Chief Researcher with the Civil War Project and a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, Williamson County Grays Camp 502. The Oddfellows Cemetery was founded by the International Order of Oddfellows in the mid-1800s and has more Civil War graves than any other cemetery in Williamson County, with 129 Confederate, 9 Union, and 24 surviving family members of soldiers that were killed in action. While every one of the veterans buried here has a story, we're going to focus on 6 veterans who had a particular place in the history of Georgetown and Williamson County. John Jay Aki, Jabez Brattain, Thomas Proctor Hughes, William Knight Macomson, Francis Ashbury Mood, and M.Z. Taylor. So let's get started. John Jay Aki was born in 1810 in Tennessee and moved to Georgetown sometime between 1840 and 1848. Aki opened the first hotel in Georgetown just after the county and the city were founded in 1848. It was located on Brushy Street, now Austin Avenue. The Aki Hotel was a popular stopping off point for travelers from the Red River to Austin. It's said that it welcomed some of the most prominent figures of the time, including Robert McAlpin Williamson, Three-Legged Willie, and the namesake of our county. In 1861, at the age of 51 years old, Aki joined the local militia at the start of the war, the 27th Brigade of the Texas State Troops. The Aki Hotel was a place where local residents and travelers alike gathered to get the latest news of the war. Aki died in 1864 and is the first Civil War veteran buried in the cemetery. Jabez Brattain was born November the 29th, 1833, in Putnam County, Indiana. He and his family moved to North Texas in 1845 and then on to Georgetown in 1852. He became a clerk in a local mercantile and was elected sheriff of Williamson County sometime just before the beginning of the war. Like many in the county, he was an anti-secessionist, but when the state seceded, he remained loyal to the state. He was appointed to the adjutant position in W.C. Dalrymple's Mounted Ranger Company in May of 1861. When that unit was dissolved in 1862, Brattain enlisted as a private, Company A, commanded by Edward Vontress, Morgan's Texas Cavalry. At the end of the war, Brattain returned to Georgetown and engaged in the mercantile business and ranched until 1891, when he opened a marble business with O.L. Spencer. Jabez Brattain died in 1902. Thomas Proctor Hughes was born in 1826 in Kentucky. He graduated from Center College in 1848, and he practiced law until he moved to Georgetown in 1851. He continued his law practice in Georgetown until forming a partnership with J.J. Dimmitt in 1860. Hughes was elected to represent the county at the secession convention called by Governor Sam Houston. And on February the 1st, 1861, he was one of only 8 of the 177 delegates to vote to remain in the Union. But, like Jabez Brattain, he remained loyal to the state. And on March the 7th, 1862, Hughes enlisted as a private in Company A of Morgan's Texas Cavalry. In 1866, Hughes was elected district judge, but he was removed from office during the Reconstruction period. He subsequently was elected district attorney in 1872 and held that position until 1875. Thomas Proctor Hughes died in 1899. William Knight Macomson was one of the earliest pioneers in Williamson County. He was born in Illinois in 1836 and moved with his family to Brushy Creek in what would become Williamson County in 1847. Macomson received his early education from George Lehman, who built the first schoolhouse in the county. Like many in the county, he was opposed to secession prior to the war, but when Texas seceded, he volunteered as a private in Company A of Morgan's Texas Cavalry. In 1864, Macomson was elected sheriff of Williamson County. He left Confederate service to take up his new position, And in 1865, McKenzie was appointed by Governor Hamilton as district attorney, serving in this position until his resignation in 1870, whereupon he became a criminal defense attorney in Georgetown. He was the author and publisher of the Georgetown Watchman newspaper in the 1860s and 70s. McKenzie was a founder of the Williamson County Old Settlers Association and served as its president. He died in 1919. Francis Ashbury Mood was born in Charleston, South Carolina on June 23, 1830, to John Mood, a Methodist minister, and Catherine Mood. Francis was licensed to preach at the age of 19 and graduated from the Charleston College at age 20. He began his career as a minister, first as a junior circuit preacher and then later in Sumter, South Carolina. In 1860, he was appointed the presiding elder at Orangeburg, South Carolina, some 75 miles from Charleston. It was on the morning of April the 13th, 1861, when he was awoken at daylight and told of the bombardment of Fort Sumter. He rushed to the train station and caught the first train to Charleston, arriving at noon, whereupon he watched the bombardment of the fort from the battery in White Point, along with the other citizens that were left in Charleston. On Sunday, April 14th, after preaching a sermon at the Cumberland Church, he was approached to accompany a group of men to the fort as the Union soldiers were being evacuated. In a small boat 50 yards from the fort, he observed as Major Robert Anderson and his men made their way to the USRC Harriet Lane as Yankee Doodle was played by the band. After the war, Mood moved to Texas and became the president of Soule University, located in Chapel Hill, Texas. By 1870, he had completed his doctorate of divinity at Charleston College. He persuaded the Methodist Conference that it needed a college that was more centrally located and farther away from the ravages of yellow fever. In 1872, Mood founded the Texas University in Georgetown, later renamed to Southwestern University. He died in 1884 in Waco and is buried at the Oddfellow Cemetery. M.Z. Taylor, who was one of Georgetown's most prosperous citizens, was born in 1841 in Arkansas and moved to Georgetown along with his family in 1849. He was educated in Georgetown and worked in his father's mercantile until the beginning of the Civil War. Taylor volunteered for Confederate service first as a private in the 28th Brigade of the Texas State Troops, and later, on July the 13th, 1861, volunteered as a private in Company E of the 4th Texas Infantry under General John Bell Hood. In December of 1861, he was discharged from service from what doctors called consumption and returned home after a hospital stay. He later rejoined the Confederacy in May of 1862 in the 16th Texas Volunteers Regiment, and was elected second lieutenant and later promoted to captain after the death of Captain Chalmers at Mansfield, Louisiana during the Red River Campaign. After the war, he returned to Georgetown, inherited his father's mercantile, and continued in that business until 1882, when he founded the First National Bank of Georgetown and became president. Taylor was also instrumental in founding of Southwestern University and the railroad company that ran tracks between Georgetown and Round Rock. A similar effort to build a railroad between Georgetown and Granger failed due to lack of financing. And in 1895, M.Z. Taylor took his own life. Some people think it was because of the railroad failure, and others from a case of post-traumatic stress from the war.